Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Jagerbombs Wednesday PGA Shots for the Wells Fargo Championship. Joining me, Dane Chenault. How's it going tonight, buddy?
It's going good. Ready for a new week. Always an awesome course. Always awesome event. It's a big course. Have some big events here in the past and in the future. So it's one that all the big boys love to come and play. And they got finally. I think they got screwed by the schedule a couple years back, but now the schedule this year they're 2 weeks before the PGA. So next week gets screwed by the schedule. So a lot of them are here, and it's going to be an awesome event.
Yeah, super strong field, tough course. That is just right there makes it awesome right away. Make it feel like a almost like a major, I guess you could say. I'm just gonna share the link here and get a few more people in here while we're going. But yeah, looking at the course itself, it has ranked, top 10 on tour pretty routinely every single year. Looking at just kind of some notes here, just right off the bat. We didn't have a preview show this week, so I'm just going to touch on a few things as we go along. First of all, looking at, okay, I'm just going to skip over the course history. They didn't play here last year, it was canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And also in 2017, you'll see that there's no course history on the sheet this week, and that's just simply because they had the PGA Championship they were preparing for that year. So they had it. Oh, geez, I forget the name of the course.
Eagle Point.
Eagle Point had it that year, so I'm not looking at any course history for that myself. Um, are you looking at anything 2017, like just completely different course? Yeah, I just
I
myself
mean,
just
I
can't pull
just
it out.
I just pulled up the PGA Championship leaderboard. I'm definitely not looking at any Eagle Point, but the big thing is really in 2017 at the PGA was the first event after a pretty big renovation at this place. It's pretty close to here, so I'd went to it quite a few times, and they really renovated a lot of these holes and swapped them around. Um, and 2017 at the PGA was the first time that they played it. So if you look at course history, there's really 3 years since they've made those changes. So yeah, I am looking at the PGA a little bit just to get a little bit more sample, but it was set up a lot tougher at that event than it was the last two times that they've had it. Just the regular Wells Fargo Championship in 19 and 18, it was set up a little bit easier than it was for the PGA.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes a lot of sense here. I'm just finishing sharing this in a couple spots. For some reason, I can't access YouTube on my computer, so I'm just on my phone here, not ignoring everyone. I don't think anyone's really watching yet here anyway. Yeah, so I guess while we're waiting here before we touch on any more of this course, it was pretty much a shit show last week. Was a little tilty. I wanted to talk about it on Monday in our in our show. We didn't get to have one, so um, myself, I was all over Keegan Bradley and Sam Burns. Like in the show, the early show last week, we had talked about that, but I ended up not playing them whatsoever in my three max. So I was a little disappointed there. So yeah, looking to rebound here this week, and I kind of really like this field. But like we talked about a little bit offline, we the top tier is a little bit hard to narrow down here. So I guess some stats that I'm looking at that are going to help me narrow it down this week. I am looking for distance number one. Looking for long irons, 175 to 200 for the really long guys, 200 plus for almost everyone. Like we've got 8 holes that are over 450 yards, 3 that are over 500, I believe, on the par 4 side of things. 3 of the 4 par 3s are over 200 yards. One of them, I think hole 6, is 240 plus yards. So that's kind of what I'm looking at to narrow things down. Is there anything specifically that you're looking at?
Yeah, it's a lot of long irons. A lot of these holes you're going to see long irons coming in 175 to 200. On a lot of them, there are a couple birdie holes that guys are going to have to take advantage of. There's a short par number 14, and then 15 is a par 5 before they hit that really tough stretch on 16, 17, 18. And then there's a couple more birdie holes, par 5s that they can get after, but for the most part, like hole 1, they're going to have a long iron into there all week. I would think, unless they move tees up. So, I mean, there's tons of holes that you're going to see that. So, being able to get it on the green and 25, 30 feet away is going to be a big thing for these guys. So they're not scrambling on 18 holes every day this week. They don't want to be having to get up and down and make pars. They would love to make it easy on themselves, and they're going to need long irons to do it. I would throw in a little bit of bogey avoidance or scrambling or whatever
Mm-hmm.
around the green stat you want to look at, because there are going to be missed greens with hitting these longer irons in. You're not going to hit every single green this week. Like you mentioned, it's a pretty tough place to get around, so I am throwing that into my model a little bit too. Driving distance is another big one. I know you've mentioned a lot. You would much rather have the guy that hits it down there and is 140 or 150 out hitting a wedge than you would a guy that is 175, 180. It's probably a little more pronounced this week, because if you got a guy like John Rahm, he's gonna maybe have 150, 60, 70, whereas a shorter hitter is going to be closer to a 200-yard approach. So I'm definitely throwing in distance a little bit this week. And that's kind of the main things I'm looking at in my model.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And definitely I'm not totally ruling out anyone that maybe isn't driving, averaging 200, 285, 290. But I'm going to make damn sure that those guys that maybe aren't there on the distance side of things are hitting with the around the green stuff. So they're going to be farther out. So one, you want to make sure that they have good long irons, 200 plus range. Two, the par fours are very difficult, so par four scoring in there. And then if you're looking at, say, like Fantasy National, looking at those par fours that are longer, 500 plus especially, those three holes are going to be killers to some guys' game. And then of course the around the green. I totally agree with you with a lot of these, extra long irons that are out there. We are going to see a lot of missed greens from these guys. I'm just going to go look at the average GIR here over the last 5 years. We had 64 in 2019. It was 64%. These are the guys that just made the cut. I believe it was more around 58 to 60% in terms of everyone, the whole entire field. So it's definitely a place, the strokes gained approach. There's going to be some missed greens, so that strokes gain around the green mixes in there as well. So I'm 100% with you there. Now, I'm just going to go over, I've got this set up so we can go and look at the weather here real quick. All right. So Thursday actually looks really nice. We're about, high 50s to mid 60s the whole day. Not a whole lot of wind going on, as you can see, about 2 to 5 mile an hour pretty much the whole entire day. So Thursday, no concern, great playing conditions. We should see some good scores there. I don't think that's going to follow into Friday. Right now, I'm seeing like the early tee times, like 7, 8 a.m. local. You're looking at no wind, but at 10 a.m., right around there. And I'm looking at Wind Finder here if you're looking for that website. I post this Charlotte Douglas Airport link in chat, so you can come check it out throughout the tournament. Check it out later tonight, first thing in the morning, depending on how early you're up. But Friday looks like the concern, starting at about 10, 11 a.m. We're getting about 12 to 15 mile an hour winds come with gusts around 15 to 20, and then even more so once we get into the afternoon. So I guess if you are looking at maybe deciding between one player or another, I don't mind the Thursday late, Friday AM wave, and the earliest Friday as possible if you're looking to maybe avoid some of those winds. Have you looked at anything weather related yet?
Yeah, I'm not going to factor it in. I'm not building a bunch of lineups this week, so I don't think it's pronounced enough for me to wave stack or anything. So
Yeah.
I think I'm going to stay off trying to stack anything. But yeah, if you are building a lot of teams, maybe you set aside a few to do that stack that you were talking about with the waves.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think it's needed, but like I said, for me, it'll come down to like one player versus another. And I wasn't able to get the tee times up in the cheat sheet this week. Had a lot of baseball issues and some NHL back end stuff. So I'll get that up as soon as possible. I know we had a guy in Roto Pros that was asking for that, and it's something I usually put in when there is wind. And this would be a good week for it. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that in. So sorry about that. I'll get that in going forward for sure, and we will definitely talk about that. So I'm going to flip over to the sheet here quick, and we will have a look at that. Looks like it's loading extra super slow today. So just give me a second here. There it is. Had my kid just show up at home here, so I had to wave at her. She actually came in pretty quiet, so pretty happy there. So let's just jump right in. Let's look at the top range here. We've got Justin Thomas, Bryson DeChambeau, John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Webb Simpson. Patrick Reed's a top 10 player in the world as well, so absolutely stacked field. At the top of the DraftKings here, we got two guys over 11. That's JT and Bryson. For me this week, Bryson is number one. If there's ever an event to play Bryson where you're looking for as much distance as possible, he's in there. And even if he's laying back, let's say with a, let's just go ahead and say like using his 3-wood, and he's still going to get some long approach shots coming in. In my model, he is number one in approach shots from 200 plus yards, strokes gained. So I'm definitely on Bryson in the top. He's my number one. I think he's going to be high owned just because he's known to be the distance guy. So I think there is some spots that we can definitely pivot to in this range. And I guess first of all, who's your top guy, and then who would your top pivot be, just based on some ownership projections this week?
It's a tough range, like I was saying, and picking out one guy. Um, I've went back and forth all week between JT, Bryson, Rahm, and even Rory because of the ownership discount a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and the course history. Like you mentioned, having distance here, we've seen in the past, means quite a bit. All these guys have distance. Rory, it fits that to a T with the course history that you see from him. He carries the ball a long way. So Bryson definitely, it's a fit for him. So he's right up there. But if I had to pick one at this moment, which it could change before the end of the night, I would go. I'm thinking John Rahm, even though he's going to be the highest owned. I'm looking around 22% is what I'm seeing. He's going to be up there, but all these guys are pretty close. He did play here in the PGA Championship in 17 and did not play very well. But I could see, he's playing great golf right now. He's very consistent. Fifth, ninth, last two events. So I think Rahm, third highest guy, I would have expected him, I think, to be above Bryson when pricing came out. So I think Rahm would be number one for me right now.
Yeah, seeing him third in pricing is really nice. I definitely like that, and I'm with you. I'm if I was building 20 max, I probably would try and fit him in. Maybe not split Bryson and Rom, but I'd probably have, 60%, 50 to 60% Bryson in there, and then build some Rom, a little bit less exposure in there. But I think I'm probably only doing cash and then 3 max. I'm probably just going to have to pick one guy in this top range the way I'm building. So for me, it's Bryson, but Rom would definitely be up there as well. And then kind of dipping into the guys below in that 9K range. I really like Hovland this week. I'm just going to look at some ownership here real quick. Let me flip over here. What was I looking? I was looking at Fanshare Sports this week is what I was kind of going off of a little bit. So looking at Hovland, he looks like he's going to be very high owned. Will Zalatoris is probably going to be high owned in that 9K range too. I definitely like Hovland. He's got the distance. He's done very well in that lately. The irons are there. If we go look at him, he's fourth in strokes gain off the tee over the last 24 rounds, fourth in strokes gain approach. So the ball striking has just been absolutely awesome. Second in opportunities gain, and he's ninth and fifth in proximity from 175 to 200 and 200 plus. So he's definitely my favorite in the range. But if we're looking for, maybe a pivot, I could see Patrick Cantlay. He's missed 3 straight cuts. No course history here. He's going to be low, probably the lowest owned anyone of probably even the 8K and up guys, I would think, pretty close, at least top or bottom 3 lowest owned out of that group. Tony Finau, we usually see him in like the 18 to 20% range in these types of events, but 9,500 when this is an elite field, I think he's going to be a little bit 12 to 14% somewhere in there maybe. I think that could definitely work out as well. Is there any pivots you like here? Patrick Reed is another one actually that shows up probably around that 10 to 13% range, who's going to be a little bit lower owned. We know he's excellent around the green. He's done good on some of these longer courses. He can give you that distance. He's got a top 10 here in 2018, T28s in 2016 and 2019. At that low ownership, he's someone I think I'm going to take a chance on in GPP in my 3 max, maybe at least in one of the 3. I'm possibly even thinking 2 of the 3.
Yeah, there's a few guys here that I really like. at the very top, I know he was kind of in the last range we talked about, and I mentioned him some. But Rory, I mean, his game's been definitely off. But I think he comes back here. He's had a little bit of time off. I'm willing to jump back in at now 10,000 and around 10 to 12% owned. Usually you see him above 20%, especially at a course that he's played this well on in the past. So I'll jump back in on him. You mentioned Hovland. I don't have much more to say about him. I like him a lot as well. He's coming in, regaining a little bit of form last
Yeah.
couple weeks. Finau, he's played pretty well here in the past. Nothing super high as far as finishes, but 9,500 is a fair price for him. He's going to score for you. He's got the distance that you need. And then I think my favorite guy and one that I really like to win this week and actually and break through in a big event is Neiman.
Ooh, yeah.
9,100. He's playing really well. He's got the ball striking. He's sneaky long off the tee. He finds fairways. Sometimes he hits it lower. I mean, he hits that stinger sometimes just to find the fairway, I think. But he's definitely got what it takes, I think. I don't know what percent on are you seeing him? I'm seeing him 16 to 18.
Yeah, right in that range. And actually, I see him a little bit lower, to be honest with you. I think
Okay.
Fanshare's got him around like 10 to 12 from what I've seen. I
I'll
don't have
take
it up
that.
here at the second, but I like that he's improved both trips. Neiman, he missed the
Yeah.
cut in 2018, came back in T38 in 2019. So on a tougher course, I'd like to see that kind of progression if we're looking at course history. So I definitely like that with him. And if he's going to be lower owned, I am definitely on board there as well, just like simply because, like you said, been playing good lately. I'm just going to look at the stats from Fantasy National here real quick on him. Yeah,
I
he's
think this course fits him to an absolute
oh,
T.
right, totally. Like he's
Yeah.
he's good on the par fours. He's good on the par threes. He's got um, he doesn't stand out necessarily lately in the proximity from long ranges, but he's got the distance. He's top 10 in driving distance gain and strokes gain off the tee, so that's where that comes from. So I'm 100% on board with Neiman and GPP there with you at that lower ownership as well. Someone that I
Yeah, the
want.
place he's really improved is the putting. I think it's
Mhm.
something that he put a lot of time into because last year, I mean, you would play him and he would have some horrific putting stretches. I mean, he'd lose near 5, 6 strokes a couple of weeks there back just last fall. I mean, he would do it, but I think he's put in a lot of time with it. When he gets over a 5 to 10 foot putt, you now feel like he's going to make it. And when he starts doing that, you're going to keep seeing these top 5, 10 finishes. So, yeah, go ahead with your next guy. But
All
I
the
really like
confidence in the world.
Neiman this week. Yeah.
No, something I'm looking at here, if you want to go balance and you would like the ownership really is pointing us towards this is to be in a stars and scrubs build week when we're seeing just looking at the 9400 at Will Zalatoris here and up there is I'm seeing like five guys over 18% or at least over 17%, kind of in that range, really spread out in the top. And then below that, we've got guys in the, let's say 12 to 15% range all in the top here. Like we've got Cantley and Xander, who I think are going to be maybe sub 10% in the top tier. But if I think this is pointing us, like I said, to a stars and scrubs build. For that reason, I think just kind of as a strategy pivot, I think going with a balanced lineup this week, or maybe only going to the bottom of that top tier and starting there is one way to go. And the reason I say this is I have three players that I really like in the 9K range that I think you could start a lineup with, and they're only going to be like 10 to 12% owned from what I'm seeing. And that we've talked about all of them except for Corey Connors. So Patrick Reed, Corey Connors, and Neiman all right there kind of look like this range in general, the mid 8K to 9 and the 9K range is going to go a little bit overlooked in terms of the ownership this week. So I think a balanced build could definitely be something that's going to be contrarian. Um, and there's definitely winning equity with some of these guys down here that I don't think we're necessarily missing out, but that strategy also is a little bit more risky just because the field is more loaded. We do have more top players in the field, taking away some of that win equity. So you really need, if you go that route, you really need Thomas, DeChambeau. You need those guys in the 9K range, one of them to win. You need at least two or three of them inside the top five if you're fading those top guys this week. Any thoughts on that balance strategy?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the builds, like you said, are going to take you to wanting one of these top guys because they have so much win equity, and they're probably sometimes I think, I mean, they have to win or something. I don't even know if they have to win. If you have the winner in your lineup, somebody else could win in this 8-9K range, and you have them finish top three, that's
Yeah.
fine too. Even though they're priced $11,000 or more, you just need them to score for you and get a top three finish or something like that to pay off. So yeah, I think a balanced build, I think, will be a touch bit different this week. I don't see many people starting down here. I think they're going to take somebody in the tens and then one in the nines and then go from there.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's a lower owned way of doing it. Even if you wanted to go, like I think a lot of people maybe even trying, with this, it seems like almost like Masters pricing, I guess you could say, where it's not too hard to fit in two of these top tier guys. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. I think, building three max the way I'm looking at it right now, my three max for sure. I want to go two Bryson, and then I'm going to go one balance. I've kind of rested on that as of now. If I was going 20 max, I'd probably I'd maybe do two 20 maxes and just do one stars and scrubs and then one 20 max, using more of a balanced attack rather than going at one whole 20 max and just splitting it that way. I'd rather take 20 shots with one strategy and then 20 shots with a strategy. I mean, you don't have to spend a lot of money either. You can go into these quarter contests. You can go into, though that's the best way to just to learn how to make these new builds and new kinds of builds every week. If you want to experiment with something, if you want to make a Friday morning wave build, a good way to do it is just go into these cheap ones. Go into the what is it, the quarter arcade. You can go to 5 cent, 10 cent ones on FanDuel and just build these lineups and just try new strategies. And that's the best way to do it. And as you get keyed in on it and you start building it, you're comfortable with your player pool, then start moving up into the dollar, the $5, the $10, $20, and just start moving your way up. But just pick a contest selection that you're going with every week. So you can, the problem with PGA is that we have a week in between, or at least four days in between. To be honest, we got about a week in between builds when you're actually building your lineup. So you want to change it every week because by the time you're building the next week, if you play multiple sports, you're coming back and you're thinking back to last week. Well, shit, I tried this and that didn't work, so you switch it up. So you're literally almost can get yourself in a trap where every week you're doing a different lineup build. Especially if you do three max this week and 20 max next week, and I know I do this myself, so I always try and play one lineup first, cash games, put that in a single entry GPP or two, and that's my one core lineup. If I have time, I'd like to play the 3 max. If I have more time, it's the 20 max. But I know how I'm building those lineups generally when I go into it. Whereas if I was playing cash games this week and then GPP next week, but 20 max and then 3 max the next week, and then back to cash games, you're going to be all over the place. Your plays are going to get mixed up. Just your overall strategies are going to mesh, and you're really not going to get anywhere over the long, or over the term of the season. So I guess what I'm saying is just from a strategy standpoint, just really nail something down and try it for a month. Try it for four straight in a three max. If it doesn't work the first week, don't get down and switch it up. Try it. Give yourself some chances, just because it's not like baseball, NHL, NBA, where you're literally playing every single night, and it's a lot easier to try something for a week. That's giving you 7 opportunities to try a lineup build versus golf. 7 opportunities takes like a month, a month and a half to get in there. So I will stop yammering on, and I'll let you kind of go down into that, let's say, mid 7 to 8K range. Is there anyone that kind of stands out there as a really good pivot this week? I've got a couple, but I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, the 8K range is interesting because there's a couple guys that I like, but a couple that I want to fade as well. Day is interesting with the course history, and he was playing pretty well coming up to Augusta. He was starting to hit the ball tee to green a little bit better. Um, I don't know. He would be a GPP for me. I don't know if I would fit him into any kind of single tree or three max, but if I was doing 20, I would try to get a couple of Jason Day. Harmon is playing some great golf. He's one of the ones that does not really have the distance, but has shown at Quail Hollow that he can play pretty well. Some people will see that he won in 17, but like we mentioned, it was not at Quail Hollow. It was at Eagle Point. But if you look at the PGA Championship leaderboard in 17, when he played here, obviously he was playing some good golf coming in there, and he was T13 at this course, and then has backed that up in 18 and 19 with a 24th and 19, and then 74th and 18. I'm not sure if that was a missed cut or a made, and right at the very back end, but we've at least seen him play well on a longer track, and he's in probably better form now than he was then, or if not the
Right.
same. So Harmon is definitely on my radar. 87 is a little steep. I wish he was low eights, but he would be in the pool for sure. And then Shane Lowry's the last guy in the 8K range that I kind of like. He's played pretty well here, 34th and 18, 8,200. He's playing pretty well coming in here as well. I was trying to pull up his stats here. At the RBC Heritage, a little different type of track, being a lot shorter. He gained 5.5 on approach, though. 21st at the Masters, 36th at the Honda, 8th at the Players. So he's been playing some good golf coming in, and he's got the distance to keep up with what we need here. Lowry does, so he would be in the pool as well. And then dropping into the 7K range, there's a lot of guys that I have here that you could potentially play. I think ownership is condensing on a couple. One that I really like, and the ownership's getting up there close to 20%, and I'm not sure. I can't believe that, really. But Matt Wallace is playing really, really good golf right now. He's not played here unless he played in the PGA Championship. I was going to pull that up. Let's
Yeah, I didn't
see.
have that up. I can
I
barely
have
load
the
a freaking
leaderboard
tab
up, but
here.
I don't know if I don't think. I think when I looked, he did not play in it. Yeah, he did not play in the PGA Championship here, so it's his first time at Quail Hollow. But man, he comes in some good form. RBC Heritage, he gained strokes everywhere in his game. Finished 18th, 34th at the Masters, and third at the Valero, where he gained 9 strokes on approach. And another long course, the Arnold Palmer, he was 18th. So he's definitely got the game to keep up out here. So I think Wallace is one of my favorites, but he's popping up to 20% owned, which is a little scary when you get up with these value guys that high. So that'll be interesting to see if he actually comes in that high. Do you have any thoughts on his ownership?
Yeah, I'm seeing it probably, highest owned in this range, kind of with Cameron Tringali, up at 80. What is he, 8,400? Yeah, so Wallace and Tringali, like under the 9K, those are the two guys that really stand out to me for that reason. Like you just said, seeing guys in the 20K range under 9K and not top players in the field, not top players in the world, especially one like you said with Wallace, doesn't have any course history here. I kind of want to fade that just because of the ownership personally. Um, Looking at Tringali, I'm the same with him. I mean, he's either making the cut here dead last or he's like top 25. He doesn't really have any course history that stands out for 8,400. It looks more like a course history that I would be comfortable in say the mid 7K range or the low 7K range. I understand the form's good coming in, gotta like that. But again, the ownership has me, at least in my small amount of lineups that I'm going to be playing this week, fading. If I had to pick between them, it would definitely be Wallace. I could see why that ownership is coming. The approach, I think he's top 10 in approach over the last 24 rounds. He's top 30 in par 4 and 5 scoring. He's up there in opportunities and birdies gained too. So there's a lot of key stats, and like you said, he's got the distance to compete. I think he averages right around 300 yards per drive. Although the driving distance stat on the PGA Tour is just stupid to look at because they literally every round have 2 holes that they record. It's either a par 4 or a par 5, and those are the only 2 holes that factor into that average driving distance. So don't look too much into that. I like more like on, say, Fantasy National, where they look at driving distance gained. I think that means a lot more than just 2 random holes that they pick on the course. So keep that in mind when you're looking at the sheet at driving distance. But it points us in the right direction to which guys are longer, which guys aren't. Um, so I guess with that said, with those guys being high owned, there is some guys here that are going to be low owned, in my opinion, and I like them. 17th in my model this week, Brendan Steele stands out. He has made the cut in 4 straight trips here. I don't know what he did at the PGA that in 2017, but he's got a top 10 here in 2015, T15 in 2016. So it'd be awesome if he just sandwiched in there a nice PGA Championship mix. But I like him sitting probably in the 5-6% range. He's going to be
Miscut.
okay. Well, that sucks.
Darn.
It would be
Anyway,
like 20 max, like maybe 5-10%. 10% gets you, two lineups that puts you double the field. So I don't think you got to go heavy on that, but I do like that ownership for him. Harris English stands out. He's got top 25s in 2 of his last 3. He's got some course history here. He should be really low owned. One of my favorites, I think I just got to find him here, is Lanto. I wanted to get your opinion on him. I think he's going to be super low owned this week. If I can find him on the sheet here. Here we go. So he missed the cut here in 2018, missed the cut way back in 2011. I didn't even think he played there back then. He must have been close to an amateur, but he's, the form's been trending down. But what stands out to me is the distance. He's got the distance, so I'm not worried about that. He's 26th in driving distance the last 24 rounds. The ball striking is there for sure because the approach, he's top 30 in strokes gained approach last 24 rounds. And then we look at long irons. He's 4th in 175 to 200 yard range and 24th from 200 plus yard range. He does very well in the par 3, so I don't think these par 3s are going to be a concern to him, being 3 of the 4 of them are 200 plus yards. I think he can gain some strokes on the field in that area for sure. And that's not really something I have in my model, but that's one area because he doesn't stand out in par 5 scoring. But those are the easiest holes on this course. I think a lot of guys are going to be scoring there. I think the biggest difference is going to be the longer par 4s and these par 3s, not losing strokes on these par 3s and 4s. So the guys that are doing that, I think, can go ahead. But his opportunities gained lately has been terrible. The around the green game's been terrible. So it's risky for sure. But I think we're going to be getting him probably in the 5 or less range. I'm just going to check here. Yeah, about 5 to 8% owned. So about half, about 5% discount on guys like, say, Harold Varner. I think it's going to get some ownership. Matt Wallace that we talked about. Tringali, but he's a little bit higher up in price, but still he's going to be one of the higher owned guys. So there's definitely some places that you can make some pivots this week. What do you think about Gary Woodland? He's probably going to be really low owned looking at his, last 2 years that he's played here. And he pretty much finished dead last last week. But I think he's a guy that could probably pop in the top 10. He's done it in his last 3 tournaments and he's done it here at this course.
yeah, I was not on Gary before you just said that, so I don't know. I mean, he did play in the PGA and was 22nd, so I know he's missed the cut, I think, and withdrew in the last 2 since the renovation, other than the PGA Championship. But I just don't like where his form's at, so I'm not going to be on him. He's kind of very up and down. He had that one good week there before the Masters. But I'm going to be off Gary this week. There's a few other guys that I'll be on. There's one in particular that I want to get your take on, but the Lanto call that you had is an interesting one because I've seen a lot of talk on Twitter between the 3 of them in this group. Lanto is playing with Daman and Phil this week, and Phil, he's got some good history here. If you look back at him, he pops when he's not even in good form at all. He's popped at this course.
Yep.
So Daman had put on Twitter that it was a dream of his to play with Phil, and he was giving him down the road a little bit. So I think they might have some good vibes going on the first 2 days. Daman 7,600, second here in 19 to Homa, and 16th the year before. He won. I know it was Corrales or whatever on the off event, but he's not been in the best form otherwise. But maybe he's got some good vibes coming back here. And we know the game can pop at any time. So Daman is one, and then you mentioned Lanto for sure. I'll be on him. I think he played here as an amateur back in 2011. I would assume he was an amateur.
Yeah.
And then he missed the cut here in 18, but he's a much better golfer than either of those times right now. And 7,400, I expect him to get back to some of that form that he had here about a month or 2 ago when he was top 20 pretty much every week. So I think he's pretty excited about this week as well. You mentioned Varner. That's an interesting one to me because I remember I played him 2 years ago here. and he missed. I mean, he started off like 5 over through 5 or something crazy. And he's always talked about that this is his home event and everything. I don't know. You think he puts too much pressure on himself
Yes.
when he comes here and just, I mean, he's not had good history here at all, and he's going to be pretty popular, I think, just because of that and the fact that he had a second place last time out. So I'm leaning towards fading him at close to 13, 14% somewhere in
Mm-hmm.
there. I mean, I know maybe we've seen people win at events with less fans now. Maybe they don't have as much to worry about, but they're coming back. And I think it's going to be pretty full this week down in Charlotte. So, how do you think that affects Varner? His best finish here was in 16 and 24th.
I would
He's
think, honestly, if there was no fans, it would be a boost to him
yeah.
because of what you just said, him putting too much pressure on himself. Now there's fans back, and he's here, hasn't had good history, and he's going to be high owned. So I like that fade too if he's going to be higher owned. Same, it's kind of the same narrative, not the hometown thing, but Gooch below him. He's high up in my model, 13th in 2018 here, but he's coming in with terrible form as well. Even you talked about Dahman with his awesome history, even right there in that range as well. But I like that Dahman out of those four guys right there in that 75, 7600 range. Dahman's going to be or Damon, whatever, is going to be the lowest owned of them. But Gooch, Varner, Dahman, none of them really coming in with great form. Out of looking at form, Wallace has got the best form out of those four. But Dahman's got the best course history. So I like Dahman in that range. I'll be fading Varner. And there's some other guys that look like they're going to get some ownership this week, going down even further to the bottom of the 7K range here. That is also interesting in the same sense that he has course history, but he has terrible form. Aaron Wise, he's got the
Oh, that is not who I thought you were going to say.
no. This surprised me looking at ownership today. I hadn't looked at his ownership yet. I love the distance, but his game is so volatile. He's either like top 10 or dead last, missing cuts. There's no in between with him. If he was going to be 5% owned, I would take a shot. But the fact that he's going to be looks like possibly the highest owned guy, kind of down here in this range, I want no part of him in his course history this week. Thoughts?
Kind of right there with you. I've seen his history, and he was one of the ones on my list down here. But then I see him being one of the higher owned guys, and he's not not really what I want to be on. Like you said, he can get us a top 5, or he can get us a 150th, or however many people in the
7
field there
DraftKings
are.
points.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe you mix, if you were playing a 20 max, maybe you mix him in, but I don't even think I would do that. I think I would take the leverage and just get off of him if he's going to be close to 10%. I know I'm seeing like 7, 8, but I mean, he could get to 10% if he's becomes the favorite to click down here overnight. The guy that I think you said that you were moving down the price range, but I did not hear that. And I thought you were going to say Ricky Fowler with the course history. So he was our guy that was absolutely burning us there for a couple weeks. And we kept riding the train of, we got to bet him. But now, how do you feel about him? Because I'm almost ready to dive back in on it.
Oh man, you read my mind. I was going to bring him up near the end. It's kind of like a fun finisher. But yeah, you nailed it. He stands out absolutely nowhere in terms of statistics, looking at the last 24 rounds of my model, except for strokes gained around the green. He leads. He's like outside the top 50 and absolutely everything, but he's
because he misses the green all the time.
He's got a lot. He's had a lot of practice with his around the green game, and now he's really awesome at it. So he's got that going. But no, seriously though, he's coming off of and is probably, what is it, his best finish in, I don't know. I can't even scroll down here far enough.
Yeah, I mean, he gained since the WGC St. Jude in August, which is a smaller field event. So he gained strokes in everywhere in his game at the Valero. He's had a little bit of time now, a month off with the deal of the Masters, not being able to play. He took a couple weeks after that. My hope would be that he comes back here, the place of his first win, the place that he's had a lot of close calls after that. And he's put some time in this last month to really work on his game and not do 10 commercials. But that's where you're going at for GPPs. I think he's going to be, he'll get 7, 8, 9% if you're looking at like a 20 max build ownership this week in those contests. But if you're doing single entry or 3 max, if you play him in one of the 3 and 3 max, he's going to be 5%. People are not going to click him in those contests, and I'd be fine. Those are the type of guys that I like taking leverage on and jumping in way before people want to, because you get depressed ownership in those types of contests.
Yep, I'm with you there. And just I know this probably doesn't mean anything, but the last time he finished T4 here, he had a T17 the week before or it's not the week before, but the tournament before at the Valero Texas Open. 17
Oh my
Valero,
gosh.
top 5. Let's go, Ricky Fowler. I think
Meant to be. It's meant to be.
I'm not going to have him in cash, obviously, in my 1 lineup, but in my 3 max, I'm probably going to get him in 1 lineup. What I'd like to see here is I'm going to be betting him outright 75-1 and probably top 10. I think I can get that at 5 or 6-1. I'm just trying to log in.
Maybe he's worth a first
number.
round leader too.
Yeah, that's something that could definitely stand out. I'm just going to look at his statistics for scoring. He's definitely round 1 and 2 are it looked 1 to 1.5 strokes better in terms of his scoring average versus round 3 and 4. Round 3, don't bet him ever round 3. It's been terrible. He does not like Saturdays.
Ugh.
But in terms of betting, that kind of just leads us into a nice. I'm definitely going to put some on Ricky at 75-1. I know back when we were chasing him like every week, we had talked about betting him at 50-1. As long as he's 50-1 or greater, we were going to do that. I mean, kind of went downhill and we jumped off that train. But 75-1, definitely not going to ignore. My favorite bet this week, I posted it in chat right away, was Bryson DeChambeau at 16-1, having Thomas and Rahm at 11 and 12-1. This is kind of why you liked. It makes sense why Rahm is going to be such a favorite pick for DFS, as he's right up there. These odds are also for Monday, so it could have changed by now. But Rahm that high up in odds, but third in DK price makes sense. Whereas I see Bryson third on the odds board on Monday, and I just had to jump on that at 16-1. I honestly thought on Sunday, thinking about the odds for this tournament, looking at, okay, we need distance, we need long irons, and looking at my early model and seeing that Bryson popped off on everything pretty much, is I thought he would be like where Thomas is in odds at like 10, 11, 12-1, not 16. So it's not a lot of value, but that's my top bet, and I'm probably only going to bet like 2 or 3 other ones. So Ricky's one, and I haven't really decided on the other 2 yet.
Yeah, the one thing about Bryson, and the reason that I was willing to take a shot on him, I played him at the Masters. Obviously, that is not a place that suits him, and I knew that, but I feel like he's a guy that can figure it out eventually, so I was willing to take the shot. And the reason for that is because if you look at the previous events, the players in the API that he won, he was obviously still good off the tee in both events, but he had really turned around that approach game in those 2. So if you throw in, he's going to be longer than anybody off the tee. He'll have lower clubs into these greens, and if that approach game's going, he could definitely lap this field. Honestly, if he's clicking on all cylinders, he could lap the field, even though it is as strong of a field as it is. I know we had I'll get
U.S.
to
Open was a strong field.
Yeah. I'll get to a couple of my bets in a second, but I know we had a couple questions in the Roto Pros Slack. One of them was about one and done. I'm sure we'll touch on that here in a bit, but one was our favorite play at 73 and below.
Yes.
Lanto is 74. He would be my favorite if we were including that range, but 73 and below is pretty tough. I don't know. It's kind of a tough range for me between there and 7,000. I don't know if there's anybody I really even like or would play between 7,300 and 7,000. So I think I would actually cross down into the 6K range. Phil is interesting to me. we've seen a little bit of form here and there from him as far as his approach game has popped in a couple of events. Obviously, he's very volatile, but he's 6,900. I think he's worth a look in GPPs. Um, Doc Redman is another one. He's from this area. 18th in 2019. He looked to find a little bit of form last week, but he's not. Obviously, none of these guys are going to be consistent for you. They're just kind of punts that you're getting in. Bigger guys in your lineup at the top range this week. I know you had highlighted Tom Lewis. He's been playing decent golf. Just kind of consistent making the cut. He's not popped for any super high finishes, but I think he could play pretty well this week. There's an interesting one very low in the 6K range that I want your take on, and it's Justin Sue or Suh. I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but I think he Monday qualified this week, and he is 6,100. I think in some of these events, obviously they weren't as that he's played in weren't super high fields, but he was priced much higher than that in those events. 6,100 allows you to do a lot of things with your lineup, and that's where it comes into maybe jamming two of the 10K guys in there or something like that. So, what is your thoughts on him? Obviously, he's not played here before, so that's something to look at, but he played at the Farmers, which was a tougher course earlier this year, and got 37th. He's made 3 cuts in a row. I know 2 of them were the Corrales and the Puerto Rico Open, but the Farmers is a U.S. Open course. I mean, they're playing there in a couple months for the U.S. or next month for the U.S. Open. And then in the fall, he had a couple good finishes as well in the fall swing at the Shriners and the Corrales again as well. So what's your take on him? 6,100 is interesting. If you could get a cut in if you get top 30 finished, I mean, you're setting gold with what the rest you can do with your lineup.
For 6,100, if he makes the cut and you have if you have Bryson who runs away with it, and let's just say you also go with, say, Webb
Rory
Simpson or Rory, exactly. And
you
go
might
with
even
Rory in
could
top
get
5.
Rom. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
gonna
have my
see.
DK open, but I'm pretty sure you could go Bryson, Rom, and Sue. I'll go with Sue. I think it's Sue.
I think
but
so too.
but no, I'm with you. He's got confidence with his form for sure. One of those, like you said, tournaments is on a longer course on the South Course, so definitely like
Yeah.
that. And just 6,100, like you said, he's mispriced because of getting in late. I think normally if he was in this field when it was originally posted, he'd probably, when the pricing came out, my guess would be at least 65 to 68. I don't know if he'd be in the 7K range, but he'd be at least $500 to $600 more. So I think you're getting value there with him in an event where if you want to go stars and scrubs, that is definitely a way to go. And being that he got in on Monday, like I don't even have him on the sheet yet because my sheet was already complete, and I'm noticing even some places don't have him on on their research yet. So he might come a little bit overlooked because of that as well. So I like that play all around actually. And then keeping an eye on him for that U.S. Open. Maybe not an outright, but he might be a guy I want to look at like a top 20 finish. Probably come with some good odds for that as well. So I definitely
Yeah,
like
I
that.
was playing around with builds. It would be pretty tough to get Bryson Rom lineups, but you could definitely do it. You're left if you add those 3 in a lineup, you're left with about 73, 66 left over. So you might have to take, like I mentioned, it's not a fun range in the low 7s for me. So you might have to take another upper 6K guy like Adam Shank. I mean, he's in decent form. That was the last guy I wanted to mention in the 8K or the 6K range. 18th at the Valspar, 25th at the Heritage, and he has a good previous finish here as well. So, like, you could do a mega GPP lineup, throw Shank or Phil, one of those two, and then you're off and running, and you can play some mid 7K guys that we really liked. Or you could change it up, not go to the very top, do like a Bryson and Rory, like we said, and then you're also off and running and can play pretty much anybody you want in the 7K range left over. Or you mentioned you like the 9K range. You could throw Bryson, Neiman. If you do Bryson, Neiman, and Sue, you're left with 7,900.
Yeah.
So you could get another 9K guy in there and still have a solid lineup left. So that would be an interesting way to go. It's kind of I don't know what you would call that. It'd have to be stars and scrubs, but it's like almost you're
Hybrid.
not jamming in superstars, but you're jamming in a lot of mid-range um, guys that we really like.
Pretty
So I
much
think
five
that would
guys
be
you like in one punt.
right.
Like
And just
three or four of them have win equity as well. So I mean, that's
right.
I love that lineup build. Going
Yeah, I
back
mean
to
Hovland would be pushing it even in that
Mhm.
build because you still got to go down in the sevens. But you could do like let's see, Finau. I mean in the sixes, I think you'd still have to take a 6K guy. It's just an interesting build. Maybe that's the way you could go too if you want to jam in a bunch of the 9K guys, like start it with Hovland, skip Bryson, start with Hovland, Neiman, Finau, and then Sue, and then you still can get decent guys that have good cut equity and top 20 equity as well.
a couple guys I just wanted to mention here as we were trying to wrapping things up, talking about that low 7K range, which you weren't really a fan of, and that's where we went down into the 6K. Couple guys
Sell
that
me here.
do okay. Here's one: Sebastian Munoz. Um, he's mid-range, like 52nd in driving distance, so he's a little above average, but pretty much just average driving distance. What stands out is his long irons. He's 19th in proximity from 200 plus, which I like. The around the green game isn't great, so this is a GPP only. Obviously, he's been excellent on the par fives. He's been making a lot of birdies. I think he's going to be lower owned as well, so I think he could be a GPP pivot with some upside. And then just going a little bit lower, you want even more volatility than Aaron Wise, but without the ownership. Wyndham Clark hits on the same things. He doesn't hit fairways like he hits fairways like me, puts him in the field, but he doesn't. He's got way more distance than me, so he's like top 5 in distance, which I really like. And he is top 25 in proximity from 200 plus, and he's good around the green. So even if he's got some shorter approaches and he maybe isn't on completely, he's top 20 in strokes gained around the green. He's decent on the par threes. So I think there's a lot to like about both those guys. There is a lot of volatility. These are GPP pivots only, but I think both can kind of fit in there as well. And then one other guy that just kind of pops off just because of the stats alone that I just mentioned is Sepp Strack at 6,800 as well. He's top 20 in distance and top 40 in both long iron proximity distances. Good on the par fours, decent on the par threes. So I kind of like that in there as well. But again, there's a lot of volatility with these guys, mainly because all three of them that I mentioned around the green has just been just absolutely terrible. So if they're not hitting greens, you can pretty much just write them off on Thursday and Friday if they're not hitting greens. So that's the way I'm looking at that lower one. Now, one and done. I want to get your thoughts on this. I know we're kind of rolling a little bit with our one and done climbing up the board. I don't really have a strong feel for anyone at this event. What are you kind of leaning towards early on?
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting week. You have this strong field, but you have to decide if you want to pay up or pay up. Use one of these top guys on the odds board, like a JT or Rom. I know we've used a couple of them already, and we can't use them, but you really have to decide if you want to use one of those and burn one. I mean, I think this is the type of event that you can definitely do that. Or if you want to drop down a level and go to the 9K range on DK and play one of those guys that have could also pop with a win like a Hovland or a Finau or even a Neiman. I think if I was going to the very top, I do like Bryson for one and done this week. If we're going to the very top in the 9K range, I think if we're looking in that range, I think Neiman is an interesting one. I just got a feeling about Neiman. I get feelings a lot about him, but I've not really been on him all that much lately. And he just keeps improving all around in his game. I think he's getting there and ready to pop off for a big win. So I think Neiman can definitely take down this field. He's a bet for me as well at I think he
Like it.
was 35-1 to start the week, and I'm not sure what he is at this point.
I got
He's
34 to
probably
1 right now.
yeah, I see 33. So I think he's definitely live with the way he's been playing. So what are your thoughts there? You think go to the very top of the board or drop down a level?
That's what was my big decision. I just think with this field, and I think like the total purse of the field, I haven't checked that yet. That's something I really look at to kind of finalize, like if it's a good purse, like a major, not exactly like a major, but pretty close, then I will look at it. So I'm right now, DeChambeau's right up there for me. It's probably who I'm going to lock up. It was either him, or I was going to go down the board and Patrick Reed. I think I've used him already though. He was one that stood out to me, possibly going down even further, but I really didn't want to go down much further. So I was just kind of hung out there with, do I go with Bryson or or do I go somewhere else? So I'm probably just going to lock in Bryson. I see his odds actually since I bet him on my site, a coolbet.com here. Usually when they introduce the odds, they don't really update them going into Wednesday, and I see that Bryson has dropped from plus 16 to plus 1300, and I think he's one of the only Rom's down from plus 1200 to plus 1100. So there's been a little bit of movement at the top. So I'm probably just going to lock Bryson in and go from there. But as my second pick would probably be Hovland.
Yeah, I think Rory is an interesting one as well, just with the course history. Does not really have the form, but we're kind of, I know there's a lot of big events left, but there's not as many as you think when you get to
Mm-hmm.
looking at this. I mean, you got to use these guys when they're playing. You don't want to get to the end and have three events left and five big
Stud players.
names.
Yep.
Yeah, you don't want that at the very end. When I first started playing one and done, that was kind of mistakes I'd make. I'd be like, well, this is not a big enough event to burn one of these guys. Well, then you get to the end and you're out of people to use. So,
Yep.
um, I mean, this is only runs for what, 3 more months, 3 to 4. I
There's a
mean,
lot
it
of weak
ends
fields
in
in there.
before football starts at the Tour Championship, I would think. So you're going to have those guys in the playoff events, the majors, the WGCs, but this is a big event as well. So I think it's time to use one of them. You could take a shot on Rory. I don't think many people. What do you think Rory's ownership would be in one and done this week? You think it jumps up because of the course history, or do you think the form people are taking the wait and see to use him?
I bet you it's
Because
wait and see.
Kiowa, he did win the PGA there the last time they had it. I think it was back in 14 or something. So that's coming up for the PGA in 2 weeks. So you think people are waiting to see maybe a little bit of form and use them there or something like that?
I bet you my guess is about sixth or seventh. I think he's top 10 ownership for sure, but I don't think he's top five. So kind of in there, like sixth to eighth, I think is where we see him, which is nice value because I think a lot of the concentration at one and done this week is going to be up there with Rom Thomas and Bryson. I think we see, I bet you 60 to 70% of all the overall picks between those three players. So while I think Rory's outside the top five, I think that's still you if he wins and you have him this week, I think you can make a huge jump in your one and done this week. And going back to what you said, last year I did really good in that carbon contest, or it was the GUP contest last year, and that's I really what I did because I failed the year before and failed the year before that was I pulled out a spreadsheet and I listed all the tournaments, the guys that I highlighted all the big tournaments, I highlighted all the majors, and I just kind of placed guys where I think I want to use them the most. I maybe don't have my sheet up yet where I can do all the research, but I can quickly go back and look at a sheet from last year. And I was just kind of placing guys to see where all the big, I'd maybe go with, say, the top 25 players in the world, top 20 players in the world at least, and just kind of place them on tournaments and then just kind of go from there. Because, like you said, you do not want to have to choose between five stud players in your final three tournaments and really mess that up. Um, I didn't wasn't perfect last year. I think I was like top 30 or top 25, so I got a good payback for sure. 500-600 bucks or something like that. But without that, you're finishing outside the top 1,000. So definitely some strategy to that one and done. Don't get down to the end of the year without a game plan. It's not too late to go and draw that out and look at the players at a more macro um, level and see who you've used and what tournaments are coming up, and just start placing the guys that you do have left, and put them in there. Don't get to that. So good point there. I'm glad you brought that up. But that pretty much covers everything. We went over one and done. We went over bets, went over value plays, top plays, GPP pivots, some ownership stuff. If you guys got any more questions, going into tonight, I'm going to be in the chat for a couple more hours here. That would be over at the Roto Pro Slack chat. Me and Dane are in there. I've got my Patreon chat in there as well. You can ask us questions there. Also, head over to dfsr.com. I'll be in that chat as well. You can hit us up on Twitter. Mine is at Jaeger_bombs9. Yours?
Red Stag 007.
Right on, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next Wednesday for another live show. Right around the same time, 7 to 7:30 Eastern is kind of when we're looking to start. We kind of carried on a little bit longer here, so go check out that Nagel's Bagel show now. I'll probably have to go start from the start because that is the elite show of Wednesday night. So good luck, everyone. We'll see you in winning picks on Sunday night.
Yeah, good.